This is going to be a quick fire question because it seems to fit the London theme. I'm going to say 3 place names in London. You have to tell me which one is not a real place name in London.
Okay.
All right.
Are you ready? Cock Hill, Swallow Passage, or Upper Butts?
God damn it, Terry.
I'm going with Cock Hill.
I'm going to go with the Swallow Passage.
False, because all of Swallow Passage, Cock Hill, and Upper Butts are all places in London.
What the hell is
trick
wrong
question.
with that?
Damn it.
It's a Mimic, the round table Dungeons & Dragons discussion, where you never know what you're going to get.
All right, welcome to another episode in our conversation on Dungeons & Dragons lore. I'm Dan, and with me today are Terry and Brad. Have the three of us ever been in an episode together?
We've been in an episode together, Brad.
Terry and I have, but I don't think the
can't remember
three
who
of
else
us
was there.
together.
Oh,
Maybe
well.
Adam was in your chair.
Well, first time for everything, I guess. But anyways, today we are covering Baldur's Gate. We have previously covered all sorts of locations in D&D 5e, including Waterdeep, Icewind Dale, and Chult, Barovia, Ravenloft, and the Shadowfell, the Feywild, and the Astral Sea, the Underdark, and the Lower Plains, and even Eberron, Ravnica, and Theros. You can find all of these episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and dozens of other podcast apps, or you could jump over to YouTube and dig into the entire playlist on D&D lore that we've built there. This episode, though, is going to focus on one of the more famous, or shall I say infamous, locations in Faerun, Baldur's Gate. So, strap in for some urban adventure with a side of slaughter in the name of an evil god. So, what do you guys know of Baldur's Gate?
I have played the video games. Does that count?
Which ones?
Well, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2,
Yeah,
and
okay.
a little bit
I
of
feel
3.
like that was cheating.
Well,
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3 isn't even fully out yet. It's only in early access.
Yeah, but I've still played enough of it.
Yeah, cool. Terry?
I don't know anything about Baldur's
You don't
Gate.
know anything about
No,
Baldur's Gate?
I'm learning along with everybody else, and so naturally the questions I bring up will be in that vein.
Okay, before we get started with the lore dump, I think it'll be next to impossible to talk about what we have available to us in the town of Baldur's Gate without spoiling a little bit of Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. It's where a lot of our information comes from. There's some smatterings in SCAG and Candlekeep, but for the most part, it's all found in...
The
Descent
bulk
into
of the
Avernus?
data you're going to find is going to come from Descent into Avernus.
I don't know if this is here, but in the UK, SCAG is a nickname for heroin.
Oh, not here.
Sword
No?
Coast Adventures Guide.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
with you now.
We have been saying SCAG on this podcast for 140-something episodes.
I know,
And
I've
Terry
often
has never been on any of them.
I've often wondered.
Oh, okay, cool. So it's an acronym. Anyways, if you are about to start playing that campaign module, this whole episode has a soul coin fueled infernal machine size spoiler alert.
Just so big spoiler alert.
Yeah, there you go. So for the tone of Baldur's Gate in 5e, what we have is a tonal opposite of what we see in the Elturals, Neverwinters, and Waterdeeps of the world. It is a wretched hive of scum and villainy, but there are some bright spots of light to the town. To draw a real-world analog, Baldur's Gate feels like Victorian London. If Victorian London was a walled city run by crooks and murderers, and guarded by and large by a ruthless and easily bribed mercenary group that would save you from looters just to beat you bloody and leave you dead in the rain-soaked cobblestones after lining their pockets with your valuables.
All
so
right.
basically,
Sounds fun.
London.
Basically, real London.
Yeah, okay. However, in the module of the Descent into Avernus, there's a slight but significant tonal shift from the normally dour and dreary Baldur's Gate. That mercenary force I just mentioned is the Flaming Fist, and while they aren't exactly the most justice-focused policing force, they are kept in line by the leader of the town, Grand Duke Ravengard, who is widely regarded as a pretty decent fellow. Well, as luck would have it, it seems that he has disappeared and the Flaming Fists have been left to their own devices. Now imagine that dark, foggy London that I mentioned earlier, murderers skulking in the shadows, and then add martial law. Oh, and a rash of murders that seem indiscriminate and are presumably committed by an invasive cult of the Dead Three. Needless to say, this is not a place you take the family to for a relaxing vacation by the beach. However, because of its location and its relaxed legal requirements, should you need to find something or engage in some nefarious acts, Baldur's Gate is the place for you.
Or if you just want to hang out with a flaming fist.
Or if you just want to
Right.
hang out with a Flaming Fist. Terry, comments on a
what?
Flaming Fist?
No.
No?
You two would make a comment before me anyway.
Now, let's talk about the surrounding area of Baldur's Gate before we get into the city itself. Baldur's Gate sits on the shores of the massive Chionthar River. This river segments the fields of the dead and the country Elturgard. Now, Eltergard is a theocracy, and Elturil is its capital city. This is important for Avernus, but not for many other things, okay? So, just so you're aware, that's where Baldur's Gate kind of sits. It is roughly 100 miles north of Candlekeep and 200 miles west of Elturil and about 40 miles east of the Sword Coast.
Can you give us those directions in Canadian?
I honestly converted it in my head. First one was 160 kilometers, then it was 320 kilometers, and I can't do 40.
40? What is the conversion? It's
64. Yeah. Boom.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, I'm here for you.
And 64 kilometers. Now, the city itself is roughly divided into 3 parts. The outer city, the inner city, and the upper city. In general, Baldur's Gate is a twice-walled city. The inner city, originally called Grey Harbor, is the oldest area of the town and contains the rough ruins of a wall that offer moderate at best protection. The creation of the upper city, the wealthy section of town where the dukes and the main section of political power sits, brought on a more powerfully built wall that surrounds both the inner city and the upper city. The outer city is just that, pockets of shantytown that rests outside the city as the metropolis has outgrown its walls. These are little more than extended slums. Just as a note, if you think you're really safe in the upper city, moderately safe in the inner city, and horribly unsafe in the outer city, not so. Remember, there is an invasive cult of murderers that are kind of left to just do their thing in the city. Nowhere's really safe for you.
Unless you know the right people to pay the right amount of money.
People. Yeah, and don't go out at night. As for the history and the lore, to truly understand the town, we need to know where it started. Baldur's Gate was once a small fishing village named Grey Harbor. That town begat the hero Baldurin, who adventured across the sea and lands for many years before retiring back to his hometown, bringing with him the influx of wealth and power that a successfully lucrative life of an adventurer brings. That wealth expanded the city economically, which drew more people to it, which expanded it more, and so on and so forth. That all necessitated the creation of a large wall, which was affectionately named Baldur's Gate, after the hero that changed the future of the humble fishing town. Within a short span of years, the nickname of that wall became synonymous for the entire town and soon was just generally accepted as the name of the town itself. Okay? Now, the city was originally run by the wealthiest of the families, calling themselves the Patriarch. Not the
patriarchs, but
not the patriarch, the Patriarch. Okay? Now, they separated themselves into the upper city, built the new wall, and then instituted hard taxes on the rapidly expanding populace, both on the fact that it has this beautiful harbor on the Chionthar River, which is so close to the Sword Coast. Like, this place is a trade hub from where
it's a very central point.
It's very central. So they started instituting all these taxes. Well, this caused a massive civil war between the nobles of Upper City and the masses of the inner city. Okay? Now, the Patriarch stood absolutely no chance here, and as their homes were looted and burned, the formation or hiring of many guilds and mercenary groups were brought into the city to protect those families. It took the election of a new group of dukes into a council, called the Council of Four, to stop the fighting. Sort of. Now that the fighting was done, those roaming, jobless mercenary groups were causing a whole slew of other chaos. Another hero of the town, named Elton, came by, brought a peace to the town by uniting all those groups into a singular force and named it the Flaming Fist.
Yes.
Okay? Now, the Flaming Fist function as the town guard to the entire city.
But they are mercenaries, to be clear.
They are a mercenary organization.
I think it's abundantly clear. I immediately wouldn't trust any group called the Flaming Fist. Don't worry, the Flaming Fist is here. I'll say, well, they sound like the bad guys.
Yeah,
immediately.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Flaming Fist sounds like something you'd order in a bar. In a nightclub.
Depends on the kind of club you go to.
Oh my god, we should make D&D themed shots.
Write that down.
David.
Moving on, Baldur's Gate has spent centuries since those times being home to adventurers and villains alike, notably the heroes of Baldur's Gate and the Dead Three, the former being an incredibly famous group of adventurers, and the latter being a trio of like-minded and thoroughly evil mortal gods, Bhaal, Bane, and Myrkul. But it's Myrkul.
Not Miracle.
Yeah.
Miracle.
As a quick aside, just from my perspective, Myrkul is featured heavily in a often forgot about adventure path from the 3.5 days called the Shattered City Adventure Path.
3.5, you mean?
No, 3.5, Brad, fuck you. I'm gonna throw something at you. You're within reach. So I really like the story of Miracle. He's also known as the Lord of Bones, and he's just like undeath personified. He is the god of undeath, whereas, you have Orcus, who is the demon prince of undeath, right?
Right.
And by the way, they don't like each other. Just as a side.
Well, you can't have two people ruling the same...
No, not at all. Anyways, now, in current era, this city is predominantly human, and about 125,000 people live there. It is ruled by the elected Council of Four and the Parliament of Peers, which is a group of some 50 patriarch members who create and argue policy before presenting it to the Council of Four. Now, this is important because the patriarch system still exists. It just does not have the level of power it once had.
Did they deliberately make this word sound close to patriarch?
I have a feeling yes.
It has to
Because
be.
it frustrates me that because people are going to dive all over that. Like, I get sick of hearing about all this stuff anyway, but I feel like that's an excuse for nerds to just constantly now talk about this.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, down with the patriarch, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, the
All
city...
of us broke white dudes going, point to it, please. I'd love some.
Now, the town is policed by both the Flaming Fist and the Watch, the latter of which being really nothing more than a glorified city-funded bodyguard for the rich and powerful patriarch families of the upper city, okay? It is a commerce-focused city, dealing mainly in trades and imports, okay? It is also the home to the infamous Assassins and Thieves Guild, known simply as the Guild.
The Guild. That's it.
So if you hear me mention anything during this episode that is just straight up the Guild, I mean capital T, capital G, Guild.
And we're not talking about the web show.
I'm not talking about Felicia
Felicia
Day's
Day's
thing.
thing.
No, this is way different.
Way different.
Yeah. To further y'all's information of the town by throwing some interesting locations in here, I want to get started. As a whole, it should be noted that while the upper city is not as affected, Baldur's Gate is under near constant fog cover. This is so pervasive that many businesses have green lights to show that they are open for business, even in the heat of the day, because the fog can sometimes be that dense and unrelenting.
I love that.
At night, these lanterns cast green lights, which causes this weird, eerie green glow in the city.
Very cool.
Like a Disney bad guy's just about to show up.
Yeah, right?
Maleficent.
Yeah. To mention Baldur's Gate, we should probably talk specifically about the gates for a minute. There are 9 gates that are spread throughout the walled section of the city. These are the only locations to travel from the districts of the town, be they the inner, the upper, or the outer city, okay? These gates serve as neighborhoods as well within the larger districts. Many people saying they come from near the Black Dragon Gate. They come near...
They're landmarks and identifiers within
Yeah.
the city, right? They're
Right.
very central points where people can easily navigate from.
One thing about the city that is very important to know is that it's very, very focused in the guilds, okay?
Yes.
There's lots of gangs, guilds, groups, mercenary bands, everything.
If you're in the city, you likely belong to something bigger.
You belong to
Some
something
organization.
bigger, yeah. And those organizations are often at war in some way, and because murder on the in the middle of the streets is commonplace inside of Baldur's Gate, you might not want to tell people exactly where you're from, because they might associate you with that guild, which means you will end up being murdered if they're against you. Okay?
Correct.
So they say, I'm roughly from that area. It's like saying, I'm from East Van, right? When really you're from Burnaby. Let's calm down. Okay? Now,
Neither's great.
Now, the common cost of passing through one of these gates into the city is 5 copper pieces a head. And although some gates are strictly guarded, others will let you pass with nothing more than a bribe and a wink. It should be noted that while the watch the gates surrounding the upper city, the rest are policed by the less strict and easily bribable Flaming Fist. Now, Grey Harbor, as mentioned above, is one of the oldest and largest harbors in all the realms, and what a lot of Baldur's Gate is built off of. It is well equipped and large, with massive cranes littering the wide and sturdy docks. There are mechanical things everywhere in the town. The god of Gond, sorry, I almost hit Brad with my flailing
It would have
arm
been
talking.
like a perfect
With
shot
your
as
flaming
well.
fist.
I
Yeah.
moved back as well. I was like, man.
There are so many mechanical wonders in the town because of the presence of the god Gond, who is the artificing god of Faerun, okay? They run all and create all these things that kind of give it not just a Victorian London, but a distinctly steampunk feel to the town, right? So
Gears, mechanisms, whirring, steam, lots of those sorts of things.
These glowing lights I don't feel are magical per se, they are mechanical.
Yeah.
So if you like that feel of steampunk, you really love, Hugh Jackman's Van Helsing movie, this is the place for you.
I did.
No, you just like the leather pants.
On Hugh Jackman or on Kate Beckinsale?
Yes.
Yes. Anyway, so all of these things are created by Gon's followers to make the docks a more efficient clockwork marvel. Due to the vital and central aspect of the harbor to the city as a whole, the harbor hands, which is a crew that operate the machinery and run the dock, and the Grey Wavers, which is a division of the Flaming Fists, patrol the docks. Now, the reason why I mentioned them in particular is the docks is probably the easiest way to get into town without being documented in any way, shape, or form. Okay? So you have the Watch. They hold no presence in the docks whatsoever unless they are specifically guarding a patriarch family heading their way to the upper city.
Yeah.
Okay?
Or on their way to the docks to ship out somewhere.
Next, when you're looking at a map, you will notice this distinctly is Dust Hawk Hill. Dust Hawk Hill is a large yellow granite hill that sits just outside the eastern walls and is home to the Cheonthar dusthawk, which is an endangered bird and rumored to be the favorite hunting bird of the town's namesake, Baldur, who's that hero that saved everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, there's lots of rumors of what else is in Dust Hawk Hill, but I will leave those for creative DMs to figure out. Now, when we're breaking down the specific wonders within the city and the specific locations in the city to give you guys an idea of feel, I'm going to divide it by the upper, the inner, and the lower, and the outside city. Okay, the outer city.
Yeah.
Okay? This is just to ease the conversation.
Perfect.
Okay? In the upper city is the Hall of Wonders, and this is the first thing I wanted to mention.
That's the thing from Aladdin, right?
No.
That's the Cave of Wonders.
Oh, so close.
Yeah. The Hall of Wonders is a massive museum dedicated to the mechanical creations created in the name of God. It has, just as a bolt of inspiration for you guys here, a steam-powered orchestra, a legit steam train, and a slew of other smaller mechanical clockwork wonders. There is rumor of a large vault hidden and protected by mechanical constructs that houses the most precious technological marvels, artifacts of Gond, or the personal storage of the most elite and wealthy of people, most likely patriarchs within the town. Okay? The High House of Wonders is similar. Note they have similar names, but they're different locations. The High House of Wonders is more of a workshop than a museum. Also, more of a temple than a vault. There's also the Helm and Cloak, which is the place to go to if you want to hobnob with the wealthy of the upper city. It is a 2-building inn that not only serves as a haven to adventurers, but as the headquarters of the Knights of the Unicorn.
Honestly, that's a great name. Not the Knights of the Unicorn.
I was just about to say, I hate that name.
But the name of
The Helm and the Cloak.
the Helm and the Cloak.
Yeah.
What a fantastic name.
Love it.
I would go to a bar called
Yeah.
like a pub.
Well, I do
love it.
want to mention specifically about the Knights of the Unicorn, which they run the Helm and Cloak, and it's kind of the base of their organization. They're one of the few bright lights within the town, and they authentically just want to help and better people's lives.
What are they doing here?
Wear
better, I guess.
You wear better.
Wear better.
Right? I mean, they're still in the upper city.
Yeah.
So they're not really doing it, but
They're not in the outer city.
yeah.
It's all relative, right?
Next after that is the High Hall, which is the center of the Parliament of Peers and the Council of the Four. It's where all of the governing happens within Baldur's Gate. There's the Wizard's Tower of Ramazith, built over 100 years ago, which is now occupied by the haughty mage named Loraucan. And, should be noted, he is from the country of Am, which, if you know anything about Baldur's Gate lore, which I will tell you right now, Am and Baldur's Gate really don't get along.
Enemies.
They are
Really?
bitter
Bloody
enemies.
Are you going to tell us why?
Lots of espionage back and forth. Lots of Am is very much a shadowy spy and assassin focused
Yeah,
town.
cloak and dagger kind of
Very
place.
close and dagger. There's rumors that they are devil worshippers that run the city there,
Interesting.
They also
Yeah.
both compete as major trade hubs, like their
especially
competition.
through Chult, which is a
Correct.
massive place. Yeah.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, and they have gone to legit war multiple times. So, also in the upper city is the Wide, which is a massive open civic space set aside for one thing and one thing only, and that is open and free markets. It is a multi-city block wide bazaar. You could find literally anything.
How bizarre.
It is mostly unpoliced. Like there's flaming fists running through it, but
Well, it's upper city as well, so you'll also have...
the occasional member of the watch, but items for sale there. It is one of those places in the D&D world you can get anything, right?
For a price.
For a price. Now, the Wide is also home to the second version of a large statue of local legend, Minsk, and his friend, this is going to annoy you, Terry, miniature giant space hamster, Boo.
He is a giant hamster that has been shrunk, so now looks like a regular hamster, but
Space
an actual...
hamster.
Space
Giant
hamster.
space
What
hamster.
the hell is a space hamster?
I don't know, because the concept of space doesn't exist anywhere in D&D except with Boo.
And how is there mammals? Mammals that are specifically evolved from Earth's environment in
Well, it's
space
not Earth,
somewhere
it's
else.
Toril, but...
So I'll break
that environment.
I'll break this down for you. It
Thanks,
is literally
Brad.
just a hamster, and Minsk just thinks it is a giant.
That is
Right.
that is your theory and interpretation of things. But the one special thing about this statue is it legit was Minx and Boo petrified in the middle of the town.
Until they were released.
Until they were the magic was dispelled and they were released, and people liked it so much because it brought visitors to the town, specifically where the markets were.
So they remade the...
They remade the statue to a new statue.
So it was a
Minx and Boo in the town.
petrified giant human and his little hamster friend that were petrified
Okay, but why all of this?
What do you mean? Why?
because early D&D.
Because
when things were wild.
It's incredibly complicated piece of lore there that I don't see what that adds to anything.
It shows you how fleshed out this is.
like this.
Right?
This is part of the city.
To be completely honest, if you are going into Baldur's Gate, it's kind of a 50-50 divide
How
between
do they
people who
even
do
know?
not give a shit about Minsk and Boo, but...
It sounds
do
like a
give-
PS1 game.
It legitimately is, right? Minsk and Boo were from a comic book and the Baldur's Gate games that came out for PC and
Oh, right.
PlayStation.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, you know how when we talk about Icewind Dale and 10 towns to the north,
Yeah.
we talk about Dritz de Werden and those guys?
Yeah.
You kind of got to do the same with Baldur's Gate.
Okay.
You don't get Baldur's Gate without Minsk and Boo, and this is where they are.
Hate them.
Yeah, okay.
I have no reason to hate
Well,
them.
let's-
Other than...
You know what? If you read more into them, you'll hate them less.
And hamsters only live for like 2 years, so how important can this hamster be?
Oh, he's lived a lot longer than 2
A lot
years.
longer than that.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll save you the frustration. We'll move to the inner city. Now, the inner city has the neighborhoods of Bloombridge, Brampton, Eastway, Heapside, Sea Tower, and the Steeps. This is important. The home of the local news rag, Baldur's Mouth, sits comfortably among the common folk in the infamous Blushing Mermaid Tavern. Terry, you're going to love the Blushing Mermaid Inn and Tavern.
Sure.
The reason why, it is a rough and tumble bar, and it is centered around a large carved mermaid statue that is adorned with nailed on, disembodied, and shriveled hands of those who reneged on their bill of the tavern and inn.
You don't pay your bill, off goes your hand, goes
And
up
it
on the mermaid.
Goes on the mermaid.
In the center of the tavern.
I do like it, yeah.
So my theory is there's a bunch of one-handed people walking around who just avoid the shit out of that tavern.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you don't want to not be able to pay your bill twice.
Yeah, what are you going to wipe with?
Stump.
Gross. Anyways, the bank of Baldur's Gate is inside of the inner city, and it's called the Counting House, which also sits in the Steeps. It is home to the legendary series of vaults guarded by the Flaming Fist and Golems alike. Rumor has it that the guild also has a home in the bank, although those who spread such a rumor often end up penniless and bloodless on the side of an alley.
Again, for those who weren't paying attention, the guild is the criminals, the cutthroats, the assassins. That's that guild.
Well, they are some of
Some
the
of them.
guild, some of
Correct.
the killers and murderers and assassins. Like
Correct. There's plenty of them to go around,
there's
but
plenty of them
if
there.
you're part of any organized crime, you're probably part of the guild.
Yeah. There is the alchemical Fulgir's Fireworks, which is another artificing wonder, as the 4-story tall brick building seems to seep colored smoke and peculiar odors. Those with a martial bent would be remiss to miss out on Garmalt's House of Mastery, nestled in the Eastway neighborhood. This training hall meets tap room is for your most dude broiest of PCs. My guess, all the drinks have hops.
What's wrong with hops?
Brad and I
How's your
enjoy
guys'
hops.
drinks?
Delicious.
Good,
Thank
man.
you
I
very
know
much.
Hops is a thing that it is a bit douchey to enjoy IPAs, but I think I genuinely do. But I had to
genuinely
learn
do
to.
too.
I had to learn.
You had to learn to. I've never acquired the taste for them. I hate them, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
But
I'm
I
gonna
like a
work
good
on
stout.
this.
A good stout or a good like lager, and I'm okay.
I mean, if it's
'cause
beer,
they're
I'm not
hops
going to
and-
complain, but I do like my hops. I'm with Terry on this one.
Yeah.
No. If you're more of a meditating type, though, head on over to Insight Park, which is the former dump made green space flourishing with all sorts of flora and fauna.
Gentrification. Brilliant.
Yep. Next is the Elf Song Tavern, which is possibly one of the most popular watering holes in all of Baldur's Gate, let alone in the inner city, and a vital location for any aspiring DM to know before venturing into this module.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You will want to know this inside and out if you're going to run
Yeah.
this module.
Also, is the home of the Flaming Fists themselves, the Sea Tower of Baldurin. A strategic and technical marvel in and of itself. It is a keep on an island much like Alcatraz. It is armed with the latest defenses and weaponry from the same guys who are making all the technological wonders in the city. And it serves as both protector of the city and prison, housing the dungeons for the less cunning criminal element in the city.
Those dumb enough to get caught and not able to pay a bribe, basically.
Ooh, yeah, Alcatraz inspiration here. Tower of London.
And it's
lean into some of that.
it is an island, so it is
Yeah.
out in the waters itself.
I love it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Do a lot with that.
But yeah, you have to be pretty dumb to actually get caught. You can pretty easily bribe the Flaming Fists. So if you're either broke or stupid if you end up here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you've pissed someone
You pissed off the
powerful
wrong person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? And you can be completely innocent, but you piss someone off.
Yeah.
Right? Anyways, finally in the outer city, with the neighborhoods Black Gate, Little Calimshan, Norchapel, Rivington, Sowsfoot, Stony Eyes, Tumbledown, Twin Songs, Whitkeep, and Worms Crossing, which is a massive bridge that crosses the Cheonthar River and houses dozens of its own shops and homes.
On the bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah, Cheonthar
Love that
River
as
is a
well.
massive river too. So this bridge is
Huge.
absolutely massive with shops and housing on
Yeah.
either side of it.
Oh, yes.
And I actually picture under it as well, like under the supports people have built. I was in the Philippines and I saw this where people had actually like built little
Homes
on the underside of the bridge.
I
like
love it.
Yeah.
you just build
You
wherever
know how
there's
like
space.
in the slums of Rio you see like the just cascading wall
The favelas.
of, like,
Yeah.
yeah, those things.
Oh, that's rough.
That's
Oh,
basically
yeah.
that's basically what this is.
I love that because then you could have like a legitimate market on top, and then like the black market,
And
underground stuff.
The fun thing is
under
it kind of it connects the outer city with Rivington, which is one of these districts I mentioned before that is on the other side of the river.
Right.
But in the middle there is a massive thing called the Worms Rock, and this is worm with a Y. Okay. On top of that stands a keep and two drawbridges that connect the edges of the bridge. Okay. So the bridge can effectively be shut down by this central keep.
They can isolate the bridge.
oh yeah.
Right? Open the gate on either side and boom, it's only the bridge in the middle. Nothing's getting in or out.
Now, one of the reasons why I'm mentioning all of these neighborhood names as well is, like in the cold open, London has some bonkers wild location names, and you're really starting to see that London influence here.
Yeah.
Let alone the fact that it's foggy, wet, and people are getting murdered left, right, and center.
Left, right, and Chelsea, as we say in London. Yeah.
Anyways, the outer city is one of the largest areas of the town, and it houses some of dangers and wonders equal to the more established areas of the city. From the cult safe house of Ham Hock Slaughterhouse.
What a great
I
name
mean,
again.
that's not
Love
even
it.
subtle, guys. To the Church of the Last Hope. To the more practical Garenmore Stables and Menagerie, which is the place to find in the city to find a four-legged friend.
It's very oddly non-specific.
Yeah. Also of note is Little Calimshan, a smaller but still walled section of the town built by some Kalashite.
How you doing there, Terry?
Falling apart here.
So a Kalashite is someone who is from Calimshan, okay?
Which
Which is run by the Kalim,
yeah.
okay?
Okay.
So
Okay.
they just are called Kalashites.
Okay, makes sense.
Sorry to our actually fairly large German audience. So the town was built by some
Don't
Kalashite
apologize to
refugees who just wanted a little slice of home. So they have a walled off neighborhood and given it a single gate in and out. Now, if you want to know kind of the real world inspiration to Calimshan, it's very like Lawrence of Arabia, Aladdin. Like it is the Arabia flavored country or Arabic flavored country in the Forgotten Realms. So in the middle of London, there is this little walled section where all of the Calimshites live. Okay?
Yeah.
Little Calimshan has so many fun little things that go into it. It's got a theater. It is renowned for its gems and jewelry. It is just this great little place. However, there is no way in hell, if you are not either a Calamshite or married to a Calamshite, are you allowed within the city, the little town's walls, anytime after mid-afternoon. They shut the gates, and no one really knows what goes on in there until then. But my guess is it's just kind of, that's their time for themselves.
Right.
I mean, in a city with as much going on as Baldur's Gate, I doubt that's much concern to anybody.
So I got to ask, guys, that's kind of the rough overview of all of Baldur's Gate as a city. There are a lot of other fun little locations and stuff within that I didn't mention, but there were too many to just go over them.
Baldur's Gate is probably the most flushed out city. I would say even above and beyond Waterdeep. Like, I think you can get... It rivals,
agree.
but I would say it's probably actually, at the very least, if it's not more information, it's far more interesting than what they give you for Waterdeep.
It's definitely more multicultural. It's more varied and has so much more flavor. Like, Waterdeep kind of just gives you a small flavor of around the town, but doesn't give you like a full-on like deep dive into it, whereas Avernus does.
I mean, Baldur's Gate's been around a long time.
Yeah.
Within like D&D lore itself, right?
Well,
it's had a lot of time. We'll get into some of that, but just there's a lot of information about it, even in 5th edition. Avernus has an entire chapter just dedicated to the city and all the different boroughs. Like, if we were to try and dive into it, we would be here for hours. So if you want a city that's fleshed out as a DM that you don't have to create yourself, there's some inspiration.
Well, here's the question then. As a DM, what do you guys think would be a difficulty in running a campaign in Baldur's Gate? Let's roll the dice.
All right. Natural 20.
I got a 4.
18.
I got my natural 1 with the natural 20, so I'll go first. Biggest difficulty, like I said, it's so fleshed out. This is truly a sandbox that is not of your own design. So if you really want to embody this city and you have players who've done any research into it, you need to know a lot. Yeah, like there's a lot of work that has to go in as a DM if you're going to go into Baldur's Gate. I mean, really, you can handwave a lot of stuff, especially if your players don't know the setting at all.
Yeah.
But I think you would also be doing yourself a disservice because it's so flushed out and you have so much that's been given to you. I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice to make it all up yourself. Yeah. But that said, it's also such a big city that there's no way the book has covered it all. So you're going to easily be able to make some up as you need.
Yeah.
Terry?
Yeah, the biggest difficulties is going to be remembering all of the lore, like Brad said. So I would agree with that. But what I would want to add to it for DMs is that you're not expected to know everything right there because the people in these types of cities don't necessarily know. So this, of course, is a huge London inspiration for me.
Yeah.
But also from some of the other capitals in the UK or former capitals like Edinburgh or York, they have a similar feel to a smaller degree. They're smaller cities. But the people within those places will know some of the lore about London, whether you're in like Whitechapel or whatever, but they're not, the people on the street are not going to know hundreds of years of history. Mm-hmm. They'll know roughly where these names came from, might get the story wrong, their grandpa told it different to somebody else's grandpa, but that is actually a built-in excuse for you as the DM, because the baker or the Fletcher or the person in the magic shop or whatever may get the odd thing wrong, or if somebody asks a question and you're leaning on the NPCs for the answer, it actually doesn't matter if that answer is incorrect. Because that would be true to reality. You know, you're not going to stop somebody on the street who's shopping for their bread and they'll go, well, let me tell you about this war 300 years ago. They're not going to know. Yeah. So you can lean into that ignorance a little bit until you get the answer and then draw it out from a more significant NPC later.
Cool. For me, it's the technological aspect. It so breaks what you kind of see in a lot of typical, especially metropolises in D&D. It so breaks the mold on that with there being basically steam power and like it's Victorian London is what the feel is of this town. And like Jack the Ripper and Mr. Jekyll and Dr. Hyde, or no, that's the wrong way around. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Yeah. Like we'll get to insights in a second, but like that level of technology, you need to have a clear boundary before you go into it. Because the second you kind of open up that door, players are going to be weird. Yeah. So have a clear boundary of what is possible with your steam tech and clockwork tech going into this.
Your artificer is going to go wild.
If you are not playing an artificer going into Baldur's Gate, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Right?
There's got to be one.
Well, but then there's so many options to go into Baldur's. We'll get into more.
Yeah, we'll get into more. I mean, yeah, you could go to that Halls of Mastery thing if you just want
Absolutely.
to punch someone in the face for hours,
Yeah.
right? While drunk. There's a legal place to do it.
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
But also, you're not expected to understand that tech either, right? Because most people walking around, we don't even understand the technology that's around us now in our real world. Dan, I remember a few months ago you told me you didn't know too much about cars. So if I was to take you outside, maybe you would know this. And I went, point to me everything on this internal combustion engine.
Oh yeah, no chance.
Exactly, but that would be the same for most people within this city.
You just have to be careful. I think what Dan's saying, be careful what you give your players access to.
Yeah.
And what kind of technology you expose them to. I was also thinking, given all of the military command, mercenary structures, political structures, that's another careful point as a DM that you got to be prepared for.
Yeah.
Because you're going to want to know what's going on behind the scenes. It's going to drive your plot.
Yeah.
It's going to drive... There's going to be so much stuff that the characters aren't even going to... Like, your PCs aren't even going to be exposed to.
Yeah.
But you're going to need to know is running behind the scenes as a DM.
Fortunately for Baldur's Gate as we get it in Descent to Avernus, you're not really in the town for long before you are descending into Avernus.
Right.
Yeah, if you're playing that module, absolutely not. But if you wanted to actually run a campaign...
If you want to run a
based out of Baldur's
campaign
Gate,
based out of Baldur's Gate...
you would run a full 20 levels and not even scratch the surface.
Oh, and know your guilds. Know
Absolutely.
their goals, what they will kill for, and have dozens of them when you're doing prep for this, right? There's a lot prepared for you and kind of given to you within the city itself, but that does not stop you from adding more in. It is a city of guilds. Go for it. Now, same initiative order, guys. General insights you have, ideas you have for running within this thing. Like, not just warnings, but what are some things that you would want to really dive into if you were running within Baldur's Gate?
Perfect. All right, so I would definitely want to dive into the missing Lord Duke, right?
Okay,
Your head Duke. The fact that he is missing, like he's the leader of the Flaming Fists. He's also the leader of the Council 4.
Yeah, he's the grand.
He's the guy, and
so this is something I didn't mention earlier, but the Council of 4 is 3 dukes and 1 Grand Duke, and the Grand Duke is kind of like the chairman of the board. Okay, he's the guy who's within all of Faerun. There is a council of all of the major leaders of all the towns, and he is the one that goes and represents Baldur's Gate.
Correct. And within current 5th edition lore, he is currently missing.
Well,
Spoiler alert, by the way. I mean, you would find that out almost instantaneously.
And that is a core thread line in the Descent to Avernus.
Correct.
Is that he's missing. Terry, if you were running in Baldur's Gate, what would be the one thing you'd kind of want to...
Yeah, I'd be leaning into that underground aspect of it. This is an artificer's paradise, but it's also a rogue's paradise as well.
100%.
Because if you're leaning into that London type, Victorian London, Jack the Ripper type feel, it's going to be lots of thieves' cant, and then even expanding beyond that. Markings on the wall, certain names of buildings will mean certain things. Some people will understand certain codes and other people won't. You can even bring in your own slang. I'm not expecting everybody to understand Cockney rhyming slang, because God knows I don't, and how that changes all the time.
You have a far better grasp of it than I do, my friend.
I have a very basic English Northerners grasp of it, which is just the ones that most people will know, and not the adaptations, because the original rhyming slang has now become another rhyming slang, which is so-called because it rhymes with the other rhyming slang. Like that's what it's become. That's what it's become, right?
Cool.
So
cool.
But you can lean into that. You can kind of make your own thieves' cant sort of thing, and have people roll checks on whether or not they can figure out what this code might mean. And you can do this all over the city with written text, images, statues, like you said. And I would really lean into that, because that's going to make for so much inspiration for certain mysteries within the city.
For me, and this should surprise neither of you, if you want to do a Cthulhuid horror campaign,
absolutely,
out of this, like 100%,
there,
right? If you are a fan of all of those old pulp novels like The Thousand Leagues Under the Sea, and like I'm thinking like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen level of shit. Like if you like Nemo and fucking those guys, like that campaign in this is where you put it for
Nemo
D&D.
for a second.
No. I thought I'm like Captain Nemo.
I'm with you.
Of the Tartarus. No,
The TARDIS.
no. Fuck! I'm gonna get in trouble for not getting that right.
P. Sherman, 42 Wallaby Way.
No. The Nautilus. It's the Nautilus, right? There are people who think it's real.
So, do you know what I just recently learned about 20,000 leagues under the sea? That's not how deep they are. That's how far they traveled when they were under the sea.
Yes. Yeah. So,
Mind blown.
if you are a fan of Jules Verne and the Nautilus, basing it out of Baldur's Gate is going to be a success every time, especially if you want to have a whole like squid cult based thing, because it's a harbor. There are islands. There are things hiding in the fog and the shadows of this town that will chill you to the bone and strip your flesh from it. Like, so much, yes, I want to do a horror campaign based
Yeah,
on Baldur's
I'd love
Absolutely, I get it.
I'd be deep into it.
I just had another thought. I could totally picture, especially if you're running in the upper city, like a Kingsman sort of vibe.
Oh, yeah.
That would be a very cool
Yeah,
campaign
because
to
the
run
tech
out there.
as well, right?
Absolutely.
You know what? You could straight up be a James Bond level campaign with this as well.
Yeah.
And be like the political intrigue, the spies.
A Sherlock Holmes campaign,
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
All
and
of
that's
this
great
fits
for
in here.
teamwork stuff,
Right.
James Bond was very much worked by himself, but you can
Well, so
do
was
it
Sherlock
team-
Holmes.
What?
Sherlock Holmes only really worked by himself.
John Watson?
Yeah.
Who?
Who? You really? Oh.
Nearly 1 year ago, you witnessed how Louise Knox met a terrible fate as she attempted to flee from a sinister house. Nearly 11 months ago, you witnessed how Ox Dillon lost everything he ever loved and was arrested for the murder of his dearest friend. And then the prophesied horrors turned to silence, and all you could do was wait. But the 10th month has arrived again, and this keeper of arcane secrets returns to you once more with 5 new tales of 5 new tortured souls, each isolated from help and hope. There are myriad ways to lose yourself to the unimaginable, as I will unveil before the clock strikes midnight on All Hallows Eve. New terrors, new tragedies, and familiar faces begin to weave themselves into the apocalyptic tapestry of dread as this train begins once again to pick up steam while it barrels toward monolith, murder, flame, disaster, and darkness. Steel yourself and witness the dawning horror of how a federal agent is faced with a series of mysterious disappearances in a foreign land. How an outdoorsman watches his livelihood and sanctuary fall under attack by unknown forces. How a man of the cloth winds up facing a perversion of his own faith. How a fearless bootlegger faces down horror in the midst of a destructive storm. How a renowned archaeologist ends up in over his head in more ways than one. No matter the route, no matter the traveler, there is little hope to be found on the many roads to Amelia.
Now, we need to get a little bit more meta. If you went into this episode not knowing any specifics like Terry, but you still knew the name of the town, that is likely because you've been paying attention to video games for the past 3 decades. Baldur's Gate is a fantastic setting and is the title of a series of fantastic video games that explore a lot of the town and feature the heroes of Baldur's Gate amongst others. The Baldur's Gate games were one of the first tastes of Dungeons and Dragons in video games that we saw, and they are iconic. You can actually buy them for your phone right now,
and they're actually really playable.
and they're
phone.
really playable.
And it works?
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah,
they're
yeah.
decent. I mean, if you have never played one before, I would not recommend it just because there's so much nuance. Especially if you've only played 5th edition, they're based on the second AD&D.
They're
rule
based
set.
off AD&D.
Right,
rules,
right,
yeah.
okay.
So there's a lot of, it's hard to read on a phone.
Which platforms are they on?
Android and Apple.
Yeah.
For like
Steam,
cons-
if you want to play
okay.
PC.
Yeah.
I think you can probably get them on some of the consoles. But
They're also GOG.
you can get them GOG
Yeah.
or Steam. But
Anyways.
worth a play.
If you want to hold off, there is a game coming out. It's kind of already out in early access called Baldur's Gate 3.
I'll get that in 10 years because I don't buy video games until 10 years after everybody else.
But this is a full game with new mechanics and new visuals that is coming out in 2022 and will likely result in me dropping off the face of the earth for a few weeks.
Absolutely. Should we do a let's play?
Oh, 100% we should. Anyways, there are also many comic books, novels, all written about the steampunk clockwork Victorian feeling town. And I gotta say, as someone who's played a lot of World of Warcraft, there was a lot of talk of upper and inner and outer cities, but no under cities. Well, that's kind of where you're wrong.
Yeah.
Not really mentioned in the Avernus book, but found in the video games and books that I mentioned earlier, are the details of the undercellar. Now, it's not perfect, but it's close. This is a large tavern, basically, that has taken over many of the storage spaces held under the Wide. And it's a secret place, the perfect home for the guild or whatever your sneaky, shadow-loving stealth monkey can find. Also, as a threat to the town and still part of its flavor are the Dead Three, which I mentioned earlier. These are the 3 mortal demigods that are rumored to walk around the town, finding followers or killing those in their way. They are Bane, the Lord of Tyranny, Bhaal, the Lord of Murder, and Miracle, the Lord of Bones. And they have all recently, as for this module, been brought low and are usually an active threat in the streets of Baldur's Gate. While few will openly admit to worshipping these gods amongst men, little signs like a single black glove or fingernails caked in dirt or a keen-edged ruthlessness could mark worshippers of the Dead Three. And unwitting adventurers waving their newly found gear around should be wary of a knife in the back or hell in the front from one of the devotees to these 3 gods.
Yeah, your murder doesn't have to be secretive. There's no one stopping it from happening.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much. So, guys, I need to ask a series of questions here. Do you think there are any missed opportunities when it came to Baldur's Gate? Is there anything that you feel that these guys have missed addressing within the city? Let's grab the dice and roll for it.
I hope I get a low number because I need to think.
That's an 18 for me.
I got a
15.
3.
I'm going first again. Not necessarily missed. We haven't really talked about it, but the sewer system underneath Baldur's Gate. It is well documented that there is a really extensive sewer system.
Yep.
This city is based on a very solid foundation of infrastructure. And I think you could really do a lot of skullduggery, a lot of, secretive acts. This is where you hide some of your cults. I picture maybe some bands of kobolds or goblins
100%.
running
Lizard
underneath.
folk running under.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
lizard folk in the sewers of a city? Terry?
100%.
Turtles and rats.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Terry, what about you? Any missed opportunities here?
I'm not sure if maybe we just haven't gone into this part yet, but a big part of this is clearly like London English inspired is the class divide in the UK. There is a very obvious and hard class divide in traditional England where you are expected to stay within your class and you should not ever want to leave it. There's a pride in being working class, and what I loved about when I moved to North America is the idea that you can be anything and do anything and your family and friends will support you. Traditionally in England, it's don't get above your station. Don't think that you're better than us now because you went to university and we didn't. It's kind of like that. And so that would be built into this type of city.
It's roughly there with the patriarch and whatnot, but there are like designated locations within the inner city and the upper city,
Right.
where like people could come and try to rub and better themselves.
Yeah.
But no, that still heavily exists.
Good. So, because one of the things with D&D is we forget what the characters actually look like and what they're wearing, how they're speaking, and we let them move around as though they're not necessarily being noticed. But if you're working class and you go into a middle class area of London, you will stand out like a sore thumb. Typically, people will go in, like, have you guys ever seen Oliver, the movie, the musical?
The one with the cat and the Disney one?
Not that one.
Oh, no.
Like
that's all
the
I've
live
seen.
action one. Okay, well, like vendors and things like that sell their bread or sell their fish or whatever will typically go into these richer areas to sell their wares and then they will leave again. They won't hang around. So you will be noticed if you move between these different areas and you're going outside of your expected class.
Oh,
I think that's
100%.
definitely built in
Yeah,
here.
So if you're,
built in there.
yeah, okay, well that's great, because if you're working class and you're going into middle class, which would be lawyers, doctors, things like that, even they don't automatically get to go to upper class.
Yeah,
you know,
that's That's kind of your outer city is your lower class, your inner city is your middle-ish class, and then your upper city is definitely your high
Okay,
class.
Oh,
good.
yeah,
And that's
100%.
something which I think can be easily forgotten in North America because we're so used to ambition and everybody kind of blending together. But in a city like this, it would be noticed, and even the way you speak to people, if it's even your turn to speak, and who the hell is this? You know,
that's
I
really
would
cool.
put that in a lot.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
cool.
Lean into it.
For me, one of the missed opportunities here is definitely more of a focus on the Dead 3. Like I said earlier, I really love Miracle Baalite, which is a really bad way of saying it, but the Baalite cult, which in the history of Baldur's Gate has been big problems, and like there's the Year of Murder, which was a token part of the Baldur's Gate calendar, where
It's like the Purge, but
the
vulgar.
cultists of Bhaal came in and just started murdering fucking everybody, right? And they had this one nobleman who snuck in as a follower of Bhaal and just like straight up killed the Grand Duke,
Yep.
right? Like
Took his station.
yeah, and took his station and took over as the worshiper of Bhaal. Who they mentioned that Bhaal, who is the Lord of Murder, purposely produced a lot of offspring to try to
He himself.
influence a lot of the surrounding areas, which is one of
They
the
call
reasons.
them ball spawn.
Yeah.
Not a joke. They call them ball spawn.
They're Bhaal spawn, which is one of the reasons why.
Dan calls
Am-
his kids ball spawn.
I mean, not on the fucking podcast, Brad. One of the reasons why Am and Baldur's Gate hate each other so much is during this era, Baldur's Gate sent a bunch of the Bhaal spawn down to Am and just started murdering, right? So, like, they are so insidiously entwined to the nature of the city and into the grains of the city that I understand that they're brought low for this, and they're still a little bit of a threat, right? Like they're a bit of a random encounter level threat.
Yes.
But they're not a major plot point. For me, you said the class thing's important. The fact that there are 3 gods legit walking the streets of the city, and they're very evil gods, and they are actively killing people and trying to take over this shit.
Yeah.
Like, Bane is the god of tyranny. He is straight up there to take over, right? I don't understand why they are as low as they are in the campaign. I mean, I get it. They want to talk about devils and
it was
stuff.
specifically
and
because
sure.
it
You feel like the people of the city should be a lot more like openly God-fearing.
Oh, well, it says like the city is very open with the fact that the Dead 3 are walking the streets. They know it, right? The Flaming Fist are hunting down members of this cult. But at the same time, a lot of the members of the Flaming Fist are members of the cult.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's very insidious and very pervasive within the city. So I would want to focus on that more as a DM. Brad, do you have any insight on what you would focus on if you were homebrewing this?
Yeah.
Nothing to do with Avernus. So the Grand Duke is still in power.
Sure.
What is the one thing you would focus on a homebrew here?
So in that case, I think I would homebrew more of the plight of the upper class driving what happens in the city, right? So I'd make it a political intrigue sort of campaign, right? I would have plots running in every single camp, right? You would look at each and every house if you were to go through, Avernus actually gives you a good list, but you could easily add as many houses as you wanted to, each with their own plots, with their own subterfuges, with their own skullduggery going on, right? That they would be trying to just pull out. And I would really lean in, like I would almost center the entire campaign, the upper city. And then the only reason you're going out of the upper city is because you're needing to trace a thread here or there or knock somebody off for a certain party, right? Everybody is part of a house. And I would even try and convince the players to maybe be part of separate houses where they themselves, you got to be careful, right? You'd want players with players who understand that this is a game and understand that they're going to be backstabbing each other.
Right, yeah.
And even the characters themselves would know that they can't trust these other characters, but they're working towards a common goal.
Right.
And maybe there's one person that they're trying to get into a seat of power on the Council of the Four.
Yeah. Brad, you mentioned some funny tavern names earlier that I wanted to come back to, and this is the perfect time to do it. Do you guys know historically why English pubs, Irish pubs even, have strange names to them?
Why they're like the ball and the chain. The
frog and nightgown,
Yeah.
the cat and the fiddle.
Yeah.
It's because people couldn't read. And so
Just pictures.
and it was hanging signs. And so symbols would play a huge part in this place. So that's why people would literally look for the sign that was the crown and anchor, the 7 stars, the Jolly Sailor. They would look for these images and these symbols. And quite often areas of a city or a specific town in the country will have like a theme to them. I'm from a little fishing village on the northeast coast of England where everything is nautical themed. My local pub, incidentally, was called The Mermaid. That was the pub I went to every Friday night, and every Christmas Eve I went to the Mermaid. There's the Ship, there's the Frigate. They all have these kind of names. In fact, the next town over has one called the Ship as well. They're everywhere.
But the ship's the shit. It makes sense.
Yeah. But you can lean into these symbols and use them for your campaign in such a way where it may not be as obvious at first, but maybe they come back to it. So quite often, I think, not a mistake, but a method that people, DMs will run D&D is that they'll have this like linear treasure hunt type thing. Go and find this place. Okay, now we go and find it. We go, but we know where it is. It's called this. It's called whatever. If you have it so that it's not so obvious and you rely on symbols like most old-timey English places did, you would maybe come across, you know, like what you said, like the cat and fiddle or whatever earlier on, but it may not mean anything at that time, but still put that image in the player's head. And then later on, it'll be that big, oh my God, yes, that was the place. We've seen it before. It was over here. So a place like London, other British cities, and this type of campaign setting, lean into symbols a lot. Not that the pub names was just an example of where it can be used, but it will really be everywhere, all over these towns.
I like that.
Cool. For me, if I'm homebrewing this, I'm really focusing in on. I know I mentioned Nemo, the steampunk side of things, but the tech, right? If I'm homebrewing this, I mentioned like the Hall of Wonders or the High Hall of Wonders, whatever it is, has this secret vault underground that has all these like artifacts and
creations. Are we doing an Ocean's 11?
I want to do a heist, man.
Oh yeah.
Or a heist and prison break at the same time because you got an Alcatraz.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's just you can run an entire like the first tier of your campaign is your characters wake up in prison. You get to meet all the NPCs within. You get to figure out the political structures of the inmates within and of the guards and figure out which guard is easy to pay off, which guard is more strict, which guard will look the other way if you need to shank somebody, right? Like you figure that out. And then for your first 5 sessions, you're trying to get out of the prison without like, you're trying to get out scot-free, right?
More Shawshank.
Yeah, like more Shawshank, right? Or, I mean, you could go Oz with it and just go. Oh, God. Just go visceral.
Show?
I couldn't make
I
it
was
through
so
it.
young when that show came
I
out.
couldn't. Yeah, I was way too young to handle that.
Yeah.
I gotta go back to it.
So there's an interesting mechanic when it comes to Baldur's Gate, and that is the dark secret mechanic. Now, this is an additional background that your party can take that will kind of connect your group together. Okay? You select what it is, and then you are randomly rolling what your role in the conspiracy was. Now, here's where things get interesting, because you also roll on who knows your party's involved in this. So there is someone in the town, and all of these people mentioned here are fairly high up people in the town. Like they are heads of the guild, or they're
not your random butcher down the
street.
street.
They're not your random butcher. They are people with power, and 9 times out of 10, if they know, they're looking for you. So your party is going to be moving throughout this city, and you have this dark secret. Now, I want to go over a couple of these with you and just talk to you about them because they're fucking amazing.
They're very cool.
First, a conspiracy in Baldur's Gate. This is when your characters are all that left of a group that strove to change Baldur's Gate for either the better or the worse and failed. So now all of the city's leadership are after you.
You're effectively trying to perform a coup.
Hold up.
Well, not quite, I guess.
You're trying to
influence and shit.
Well, let's look at some of the details here, because you could roll for the specific details. You were working amid the High Hall's records. You came to realize just how separated commoners are from the patriarchs. So slowly you worked to upend the family's control over the city, but then somebody noticed. Or too long, the guild monopolized control over the criminal operations in Baldur's Gate. You sought to add a little competition and break the guild's monopoly. It was going well after your last heist, too, until the guild came for its cut. Okay? These are some of the main conspiracy things. Now, you could be the role of a leader. You were the voice that the others followed and the call that they heeded, following you to their end, right? This kind of sets up how your party is going to be set up right away. It also gives you some consequences, okay? The consequences are Other members of your group were arrested, rightfully or otherwise. Now you're on the run. Or the other members of your group have been murdered, slain in some distinctive way. Okay? Maybe some of the other members of your group betrayed you to save themselves. So again, this is a thing your group selects as a uniting kind of common background, and it has some consequences. Someone knows about it and has some fallout and helps you kind of build your party dynamic before you even get to the session.
You need this more in D&D.
A
reason to bring a party together.
I like it.
There's too many times you meet in a tavern, we don't have a common goal. Why are we all of a sudden partying together?
Yeah. I like the one that I think you essentially said previous party members have died.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like that because that's that Game of Thrones type inspiration of where the most important character was Rhaegar Targaryen, even though you literally never meet him ever.
Yeah.
You know, it's that type of thing.
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay, well, let me break down some of these options here. Murder in Baldur's Gate is one of these common dark secrets that your party could take, where there's blood on your character's hands. You select who you killed, you select what your role in the murder was, and of course the consequences of your murder. Okay? Some ideas are you killed Dr. Hulk Thinster, who jeopardized lives every night he worked at the Cliffgate Hospital. Who knows how many were crippled to Thinster's table or died under his inexpert knife. For them, you put an end to Thinster's practice for good. Just as an example. You could either have been the bystander, a murderer, an instigator, or the liar. You know what happened, but you didn't tell anybody. Murder consequences. Let's roll one at random here. Let's say a 5. Somehow your victim is still alive and knows what you did. Now you've got to figure out how to put them down a second time. Congratulations, you've now got a multi-session arc.
Absolutely.
Right? With a couple random
I'm so
kills.
into this.
Yeah.
I love this.
Next, theft in Baldur's Gate. You stole something, and there are consequences. Let's give an example. Terry, give me a number from 1 and 6.
7. 2.
2. With the help of an inside man, you purloin money from the counting house, the most secure bank in Baldur's Gate. With the bank's reputation at stake, you know that the honorable order of moneylenders won't rest until the money is returned to its rightful owners and the thieves are brought to justice.
I like the irony of the honorable
Order
of moneylenders.
And they work for the guild. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Brad, give me a 1 to 6.
3.
3. You were the distraction. While all eyes were on you, your friends were making off with the goods.
This is so fucking good.
Yeah.
Terry, 1 to 6.
1.
Consequences. The owner of what you stole got the authorities involved, and now they're offering a reward for your capture. Okay?
Perfect.
Next, a failed... And here's why I said maybe not a failed coup.
That's true.
Because there's a failed coup in Baldur's Gate. Terry, 1 to 4.
4.
4. The flaming fist is corrupt. Herp.
Well, we already knew that.
Dun, dun,
You
dun.
turned against your commanding officer, seeking to take the fist in a new direction, and now you're branded a traitor.
Oh, boy.
Seeking
Tale
to take
as
the
old
fist.
as time.
Just seeking to
Seeking
take
to
the
take the
fist,
fist.
in a
Yeah.
different direction. Yeah. Brad, a 1 to 6. Moving on from that real quick.
5.
5. You were the patsy. You,
Oh, no.
yeah, you might have been tricked into helping, but you helped all the same. 1 to 6, Terry.
6 again.
6 again. One of your own ratted you out, and now you're all being hunted, but one of you is a traitor amongst traitors.
Bastards.
Okay? Which, by the way, one of the character roles is traitor. Okay?
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
there's only 3 options for that.
Mm-hmm.
But, oh my
That's
God, how great are they?
How good is that as a DM and as a player?
If I'm starting any homebrew campaign and my party goes, yeah, we want to be part of the same party, put that together.
Absolutely.
Just
Right.
roll those and just go with it.
That
And
in
I
itself
promise
is-
Well, not
it's
even, like, I mean, those might not necessarily fit your field.
I was
of
going to say,
campaign
those are
you have,
inspiration. If nothing else, make your own tables.
good.
Yeah.
Right? Like, at least there's an inspiration point on how to bring a party together.
It's so great, so awesome. Do you guys, let's think this. We now have an idea about Baldur's Gate. We have our initiative order from earlier. Brad, what is one uniting dark secret not mentioned here that you could have for your party?
I'm going to say a uniting dark secret is that you're actually part of the same cult.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't have, because, right, we generally associate cults with evil gods but within D&D, I mean, it can be a cult to really...
I mean, the Knights of the Unicorn, that sounds fairly cultish, right?
I mean, choose a patron, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, with Tasha's, we kind of introduced group patrons.
Yeah, cool.
But something along those lines, right? Where you are all serving a similar organization. What the goal of that organization is, be it, to overthrow a power. Maybe it's just to obtain an artifact. Maybe it's just to sow subterfuge throughout the town.
Okay.
Just to sow seeds of doubt, misinformation.
Terry, you got one?
Oh no, I mean, perhaps you've all wronged the same person, but you're not aware that each other has wronged the same person.
That's great for. Well, no, you'd want to be aware because this is a uniting thing for the party.
Right. Okay, that's right.
But like, this is perfect for your political intrigue campaign where you're really trying to play into that class warfare. All of your characters are from the outer city trying to make their way into being part of the patriarch.
Where you all owe a debt to the same person,
Or
an
that,
unpayable debt.
You
right?
said class divide right there, and you just you jogged my memory from an old movie, The Prince and the Pauper. If anybody's aware of it,
the Mickey Mouse one.
not the what is it with you and the Disney things? No, there's legit movies.
He's a dad of young children.
That's okay. That's understandable.
Yeah.
But the class divide, the one of you is perhaps upper class and is being shown with like lower class people or something like that. Either way, they're not where they're supposed to be in society, and perhaps the united secret is that for whatever reason you're hiding that person.
Yeah.
Or you're all like a family that may be on the run if you think that like
Turns out you all share a father and you didn't know it.
And the father's Bhaal. You're all Bhaal spawn.
Oh boy.
Exactly.
For me, I'm going back to the prison escape thing. You guys are all prison escapees, right? You have all escaped prison before the campaign even starts. You've all escaped prison.
all
this
Lamb.
could be 20 years ago.
Right.
You all escaped prison.
And now you're all here, and there's someone in the city who knows you, who's like the lead investigator in your case from way back in the day, and it's a dead case, but it's the one that ate him up. It's the one failure of his career, and he's there to hunt you down. Like, that is a typical player trope that now you have as an NPC chasing the party.
Yeah.
Right? And he might be a legit good guy, maybe a bit of a drinking problem, you know?
Lachlan Boyle.
Yeah, haha. But
Great
like,
character though.
oh, so such a great character. Genius who thought that guy up. So you could run with this and then put your characters back in prison, and now you're doing another prison escape, right? There's just so much you could do with such a deep connection between the party from the get-go, and it really prevents that whole discovery period that can sometimes be very awkward, especially with new players trying to describe who their character is. This gives you an easy in that you are all part of a party, and here's why, right? There's no mechanical boon. It's all flavor.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah, so I have a general DM tip, which I think is going to help DMs when they're working on a larger scale for these biggest cities like this. I use a system where I have a hex map, and instead of trying to remember every street and everything, and do we do it like a dungeon crawl, and how do we move around, remember every detail, what I do is a region of the city, whether it's the upper city, lower city, or whatever, I may have 5, 9, 12, 13, whatever hexes, and in each hex I will have a not so random encounter, or maybe one of 3 possible things that could happen, where instead of the party moving between specific streets, and are you on Smith Street now, or West Street, or whatever, is that they will move into a hex, and I will give them a situation within that general area. And so I basically minorly railroad them onto a specific street, but hey, you said you want to go to this part. Now, it's not going to be a whole district, it'll just be a small area, like
a city block or two.
like, you know, where we are right now, like the hill and the 3 streets around.
Yeah, okay.
And then you just put them somewhere in here, and that's where the situation is. It's a lot easier to control because you can prepare these not so random encounters ahead of time, and then instead of hoping, oh my goodness, I do this, or what if they don't do this, do that, whenever they go to an area, you can have one of 3 things that will happen that will fit in with what they're doing, and you're prepped for it ahead of time. So hex maps are really good for this kind of thing, because you can have situations prepped ahead of time.
I like it. Well, if you want more great tips like that, or you want to get in touch with other people in the community who are thinking like-minded or have some different ideas for you, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and at r/itsamimic on Reddit. Of course, you can always email us at info@itsamimic.com, and please feel free to send in any questions you may have for our mailbag episodes.
Yeah. Also, I want to, just to give kind of a talking point, if I missed any like a special feature within the town, like one of these locations that I just skimmed over, and you feel like I have done it dirty and not highlighted it enough,
Go to the Reddit.
go to the Reddit, make a post, tell me which one's the best and why. I kind of want to hear your guys' opinion. What of these areas within Baldur's Gate really inspires you to run a great game?
Yeah, Baldur's Gate is such a big city where I guarantee you stuff has been missed.
Yeah.
We just can't get to it all. So share us your best.
So as we're wrapping up here, I do want to talk about something we have blatantly glazed over, and you might have noticed, is specific NPCs and monsters found within Baldur's Gate. There's been a lot going on here. So first, let's talk about some NPCs. Brad?
All right, yeah, so I was kind of going through the book, specifically trying to pull out of Descent into Avernus, as that's our main 5th edition talking point. But I've gone into a couple other sources as well. So let's get started. The first one that I want to talk about, Baldur,
Yeah.
the founder, the hero who founded Baldur's Gate, right? So he was an adventurer, came back with loads of wealth that he had gotten from his adventuring time, and basically just gave it away, which does not sound very Baldur's Gate, does it?
No.
Right? But he basically, all of his friends and family who lived in this small town, right, Grey Harbor it was called at the time. It was just a small fishing trading port. Not much to speak of, really. He basically shared his wealth around his friends and family and basically allowed them to flourish, to boom. And they basically founded businesses, they opened more trade routes, they gained wealth amongst themselves, and it drew more and more people to the town. So he is, I would say directly, the progenitor of all of Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
Massive character. Pretty much anybody who's lived there any amount of time is at least going to know his name.
Well, in the inner city, there is a twice real size statue of him that no one knows where it came from. It just is looking out into the water, and it says that it is waiting his return back to the city, which is really, really cool as a little bit of flavor. What about who is running the town now? Who do we got?
So for running the town, currently we have the Council of the Four. We discussed them briefly.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the Grand Duke. Grand Duke Alder Ravengard. He is currently the Grand Duke. If we go into Avernus, he's currently missing, but
Yeah.
we can ignore that. I don't want to give too many spoilers. That's a big part of that campaign. You might like this, Terry. He was a member of the Flaming Fist, started at the bottom, worked his way up through all the ranks until he eventually became the lead, or what was his actual title? Shoot,
Power Fist.
I gotta say, his name's Ravengard. He's part of the Flaming Fist. Like, this is a Warhammer.
It's so
40K.
Warhammer, yeah.
Like,
so
I'm just
40K.
like, come on, please.
Yeah, at
Like,
least try a little bit.
He has green armor and a bathrobe.
one big red hand.
Yeah. Anyway, so he rose through the ranks of the Grand Fist, ultimately coming top rank of the Flaming Fist, and at that point, that gave him the power to then join the Council of the Four. At that point, as he was on the council, 2 of the other council members died under not mysterious circumstances, but they're kind of surrounded in lots of corruption and...
Oh, yeah. Like everybody does here.
Not really surprising.
He got
but
knocked off by somebody.
Something happened. Anyways, 2 of them died, and he then played his hand right and was able to then become the Grand Duke. But the real controversial thing about him becoming the Grand Duke is he didn't give up his lead position of the Flaming Fist. So now he rules both.
Ooh.
He rules the Council of the Four. He rules the Flaming Fist.
Yeah.
He owns 2 pieces. He is unquestionably, undeniably the most powerful person in Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
Without, there's no equal, given the fact that he controls the entire mercenary group, and then he also controls the governing body.
No.
Also, as Grand Duke, he also holds the right to basically pass anything he wants to, effectively, right? Kind of like a presidential pardon he can give to anybody.
Yeah, he's got the veto right.
Very dictator vibes going on here.
Interestingly, I'm glad you said that, because he actually does not use his powers. He actually himself holds himself above corruption and above persuasion.
Yeah,
Again,
they all do. All dictators do.
He's got enough power himself that he doesn't, he refuses to be bribed, but he also doesn't. He's generally considered by the people of Baldur's Gate to actually be a fairly level-headed and fair ruler. He is not going to just bury people under because it goes against his power.
Is he like a firm but fair
In a
type?
sense,
kinda,
yeah. And again, because he's got so much power, he doesn't really have anything to fear. So if somebody's coming up against him, he can just throw him out. All right, so that's the leader of the 4. We'll go into some of the other dukes. There's 3 more dukes. So one of the dukes is Duke Balin Stelmane. She rose through politics to her position. She was a career politician, worked her way through. There's not a lot of detail about her in this book without giving a lot of major spoilers for the campaign, so I'm not going to do it. However, I will say she's recently had a seizure. I think they call it a seizure in the book. I would compare it more to a stroke based on what they've described it as. She has paralysis in her face, speech inhibitions and things like that, but she still holds her speech. Slurred speech, paralyzed face, similar stroke, and that's basically all we know about her without getting some major spoilers. For
Also
people
known
who
as me when I drink too much IPAs. Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, next Duke, Dillard Porter. He rose to his position as a respected businessman.
I gotta say Dillard Porter. Like,
Yeah.
Hey, where's Dillard Porter from? Dude's from London. Like,
It's a terrible name.
Yeah. Anyways.
I like how they put a Y in it just to be like fancy.
Portier.
I don't like names that clearly should be another name, but they put another consonant at the front. Like that to me should be Willard, and they said no, it's Dillard. It's
Oh,
like
no, well, Dillard's a legit name.
where?
England,
No, it's not.
100%.
Are you arguing with him about what's
Dillard?
a real name in England?
I went to school with a Dillard.
Nah.
I prefer Dilbert.
Get rid of him. We're very much biblical names in London, in England. Yeah,
Like Catholic names, right?
Oh, everybody was like Matthew, Daniel, Luke, like in my school. It wasn't until I came over here that it was random 2-syllable names put together, and everybody's called fucking Grayson or something.
Sorry to all the Graysons out there listening.
Sorry, all the Graysons.
Anyways, so Dillard, he was a well-respected businessman. Unfortunately, in recent years, he's made some investments that have not paid off and have cost him dearly. So he's basically backed out of all of his business ventures. He now retires on his title and his earnings so far.
Right.
He's very old. I think he's in his 70s. He's older man, and he's happy to just coast the rest of his life.
Sure.
He's on the council. You can't really be removed from the council other than death. It's like a Senate seat.
Seems flawed in a way.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's not get into all that. But yeah, we can get into
They're
that.
basically the Supreme Court.
Effectively,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, basically he knows he's got his job for life. He's just cruising on his title. People come to him, he'll promise them the world and then do nothing. Like, this man is the king of bureaucrats.
Right.
He'll put up all red tape he needs to make sure that nothing happens. Things just maintain the status quo.
Yeah.
So that's Dillard. Well, let's move on next. The final Duke, Thalmara Vanthampur. What a name. Thalmara Vanthampur. This is one of those ones, we've talked a little bit about the sewer systems earlier, and you talked about how people don't rise above their station.
Right.
This is an exception to the rule.
Okay.
So Thalmara, she started her career basically. She born on the outer city, like she was no one of note, but because she was really shrewd, really ruthless, really fierce, she worked her way up. So she started working in the sewers, maintaining them, running them, keeping things running. She eventually worked her way up into the position of master of drains and underways. So she ran the whole sewer system.
Yeah.
Of course, you get to a position like that, you're going to start hobnobbing with people of political inclinations. And through that, through backstabbing, deal making, right, shrewd, really vicious woman, doing whatever she needed to do, she made it happen and eventually was able to pull her way up into an appointment in the Council of the Four.
Nice.
So pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? Really uncommon.
Don't be
Baldur's
afraid
Gate.
to do the dirty work, you know? If
Absolutely.
Whatever you do, do it well.
Absolutely. So she is probably the most politically minded. Again, in order to get from where she was to where she is, she had to play the game. She had to know whose hand.
Or she'd be
shake.
savage.
She had to know whose back got stabbed and who got thrown under the bus. But she made it happen. So basically, whenever there's anything going on within the council, she's the one you have to watch out for because she has dealings upon dealings. You don't know what her intentions are.
Yeah.
Everyone else, you've got a pretty good idea
Yeah.
of what they're doing.
You know, never underestimate. I know she's a fictional character, but never underestimate somebody who's come from that type of background as well, where they know what it's like to do the real dirty work. When you've been
Absolutely.
running the sewers, you know what it's like to be uncomfortable, and you're willing to go to that level.
Yeah.
You know, it's there's
She's also going to know the sewers inside. She's going to know the back
100%.
ways. She's going to know all the dealings that go on underground.
you're playing with a different rule set. You
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so that gives us the Council of Four. We're going to do a couple other NPCs that you will meet. Let's start with Captain Darman Zodge. This, if you're going to do the Descent into Vermont,
know. You know right away.
Yeah.
Dad knows.
Yeah.
I hate it or not.
It's Zodge. So
Anything-
Dodge. Just
Dodge with a Z, yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Any name with a Z in it, I'm not a fan of.
Yeah.
There's
Sorry.
like 3 names I like.
Z for our American listeners.
No, fuck them. It's a Z.
All right, so if you're going to play Descent into Avernus, you're going to meet this guy off the bat. PC, you want railroading? This is hard railroaded.
Yeah,
It says specifically in the DM notes, no matter what your players do to avoid this guy, he will find them.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why he'll find them. He is the captain of the Flaming Fist within one of the districts that you will first enter. He has connections everywhere. He's got eyes everywhere. He will find you. Basically, he knows there's adventurers in his quarter. He's going to make sure that he recruits you.
Right.
So you're going to meet him no matter what. But he is basically set on keeping peace in Baldur's Gate at any cost. Be that murder in the streets, be that locking people up, whatever he needs to do. As long as he's keeping the law. I think in the book...
Keep it order.
Correct.
Right.
Law and order. According to the book, I believe his alignment is lawful evil. Mm-hmm. So, again, this is the law. It doesn't matter what you have to do to execute the law. You execute the law.
Right.
So he is all business kind of guy. He's not above taking a bribe himself, obviously, but he's also a man of some station. So if you want to bribe him, you're going to need to come up with some hefty coin. He won't be bought cheap. He can be bought, but he won't be bought cheap.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, if you try and undersell him, you'll find yourself.
It's gonna make
somewhere.
it worse for you.
Yeah, you'll offend him.
Yeah. Then we also have Liara Porter. So we talked earlier about Dillard Porter. This is the niece of Dillard Porter. She is a commander of the Flaming Fist in Chult at Fort Balurian. You'll find out pretty soon. I don't think there's much of a spoiler for Avernus, but she's basically being recalled back to the city.
Yeah. She's actually in Tomb of Annihilation.
Yes, within Chult.
Within Chult.
Okay,
Like
great.
you meet her as an NPC if you do that campaign, which is weird because that gives maybe a little bit of forward momentum to the campaigns as they happen.
Yeah, it's very cool. The only problem is the level ranges for the two you wouldn't play them. Basically, Avernus is not going to lead.
Well, no, you don't play the same characters in Chult that you're going to play in Baldur's Gate.
Anyways.
Mostly because you'll die in the Tomb of Annihilation.
Yeah, but if you want to play Tomb of Annihilation campaign and then you want something with a tie-in later, then roll into Avernus. Anyways, she is basically she's kind of next in line to take over for Alder Ravengard as leader of the Flaming Fist. At least she considers herself to, given the fact that her uncle is on the council. She herself has a pretty prominent station in Chult.
Yeah.
Like she's a big deal within the Flaming Fist. You'll at least hear her name if you don't meet her. We talked earlier about the guild. Every good guild needs a leader. For the guild, Nine Fingers Keen is the name of their leader.
Which is beautiful. That's a beautifully named character.
You like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nine Fingers Keen is, for all descriptions of her, completely...
It's a woman.
Yes. She is completely unremarkable.
Presume she has 9
Well,
fingers.
I think it's along the lines of one, yes, she probably has 9 fingers, but 2, it's the Bourne level of plainness, right?
Yes.
The reason why Jason Bourne is as great as Jason Bourne is because he's remarkably average.
Absolutely.
Right looking. I mean, he'll kick your ass 5 ways from Sunday.
If you walk past him, you're not going to notice him if you walk by him 5 minutes again, because he just looks like every other dude.
Yeah.
And so Nine Fingers Keen is specifically described in that same sense, where she has been able to get to where she is because she's able to commit a crime. And even if you see her face, you're not going to recognize her 5 minutes later because she's just so plain looking. You wouldn't be able to point her out in the lineup.
Yeah.
Right.
She's incredibly smart, obviously. She likes order, and she doesn't like to draw attention to herself. She gets really mad when members of the guild...
Like any good leader of a Thieves Guild.
Yeah, like everything that's done, right? If somebody steps out of line, they are dealt with because they're drawing attention to the guild.
Right.
Lately, there's been more and more of that, and she's getting really frustrated because there are other organizations that are being way less stealthy and way less... They're not following the rules, right? There are rules to committing crime in a city like Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
Right? You stay under the radar, you play by the rules, you can do whatever you want. She's run her guild that way.
Awesome.
Very cool. She has quite a few kingpins that work under her leadership. 3 of them are described in the book, so we'll go over them real quick. First one, Goblin Benny.
Who's not a goblin, he's a human.
Correct, not a goblin. The reason he has his name is because he's ferocious, egotistical, and full of rage, and he likes to bite the fingers off of people who anger him.
I have a question. We have 9-fingered Keen and someone who likes to bite specifically fingers. Is this a Frodo Gollum situation?
I say yes.
Okay, cool.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would allow it.
Yeah, all right.
I like it. It is nowhere specifically stated in such a sense, but I'm okay with it. That said, why would she keep him around as her number 2? Well, not number 2.
Well, obviously he's got balls if he's going to chop her finger
absolutely.
off. Sorry,
Yeah.
chomp her
Fingers off.
Yeah.
Another one is Straight Stick. Oh, we didn't discuss Old Choms.
No, we did not discuss Old Choms.
Shall we discuss Old Choms real quick?
So Old Choms is the sea monster that lives in the bay, basically.
He's a giant sea turtle.
Yeah. He's a gigantic sea turtle who lives in the harbor, like in Gray Harbor. He lives there, and is a mixture of Big Fish story to actual protector of the bay. Like if someone is like trying to get away on their boat and that boat sinks, everyone will go, well, Old Choms protected us and saved us from, them getting away with these treasures or whatever it is. Right. So yeah, that's who Old Choms is. He's kind of like the guardian angel of the harbor.
Of the harbor itself, yeah. And
Because
whether or
one
not
thing-
he actually exists or to what degree he actually exists.
And this is an interesting point because one of the things about Gray Harbor that's really interesting, it is incredibly deep. Like the bottom of it, no one's ever really seen it, right? So, which is weird for it being a river, but it is like so incredibly deep that a full-on sea monster has lived at the bottom of it,
Yeah.
right?
And could easily hide without being seen.
So, how does this guy?
Anyways,
deal with
so
our
bring that
tropes?
back. So Straight Stick, one of the kingpins for Nine Figures Keen, he's a 70-year-old man, really notable smuggler. Like he spent his entire life at the docks smuggling goods in and out. He claims to have been attacked by old chomps. And as evidence that he uses a splintered fairy stick as a crutch, basically. And he says, see, this is all I escaped with, basically.
Right, okay.
So this crazy old man, but expert smuggler, has spent his whole life in the docks as part of the guild.
Cool.
The last one they mentioned, which is really interesting, is the Whiskey Lady. Now, the Whiskey Lady, we don't know that she actually exists. No one has seen her. No one knows who she is. So she is supposedly part of one of the
Upper city neighborhood.
Upper city families.
Called the Manorborn, yeah.
The Manorborn is the neighborhood. She's supposed to be the last of the line, basically. Rumor has it there is no one left in the line, and it's basically the guild that is running this house claiming to be this woman.
Right.
And so she is called the Whiskey Lady, but she throws all these parties.
And like massive masquerade parties,
Yeah.
right?
Gatsby? Or...
But she
Kinda, yeah.
But she never shows up to them. Like she herself never makes an appearance. Only those who speak on her behalf show
Right.
up. And if you ask anybody at the party, they will not admit to it, but no one knows her name. No one's ever met her. But they will all say, oh yes, of course. The Lady of the Manor is what they will call her. Or
Dowager.
so Dowager Manorborn, I believe, is what they call her. For all intents and purposes, she's just known as the Whiskey Lady, and as she may just be a figment.
Crazy.
Basically, the organization has created this figment of a person that runs this.
And I want to say this is where the analog from Baldur's Gate to London falls apart because it's whiskey with an E. So
Good spot.
yeah, so it's not real whiskey. Is what it says.
I don't know enough about whiskey to possibly comment on that. Yes, okay.
Real whiskey doesn't have the E. Fight me.
All right, so that kind of covers the main PCs from this book that I want to touch on. There's one more that I think, as Dan's mentioned to me as well, we'd be remiss to not mention.
Yeah, the Heroes of Baldur.
The Heroes of Baldur. Not even the Heroes of Baldur Gate. They're just called the Heroes of Baldur. But they're a group of adventurers sent out from Baldur's Gate. They exist in the games. They exist in old lore. They've been around forever. They have a set of comic books specifically that they.
I've got a couple of their cards in my Magic deck.
Nerd. So the comics themselves, if anyone wants to read them, Legends of Baldur's Gate. So the party is made up of 5-6 members if you count the space hamster. You're going to love this, Terry.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Go for
So
it.
first one, Delina. Moon Elf, Wild Magic Sorcerer.
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, Minskambu, the Rishemi Ranger. Apparently also multi-classed into Berserker. He has
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, he has
He's got some anger issues.
He has some serious
He does?
anger
Okay,
issues. Yeah.
great.
And then we discussed
I mean,
Boo
he
as
throws
well.
a hamster at things.
Yeah.
Like, dude's not all there.
No, we discussed Boo, his miniature giant space hamster companion. Dan's gonna fight me on this. It's just a regular hamster.
Right, okay.
No,
But as far as Minsk is concerned, he is not. He is this giant space hamster. Miniature giant space hamster.
Yep.
All right. Next we have Curdle, half-elf thief. Again,
okay.
rogues in Baldur's Gate
Yeah,
makes sense.
I guess it kind of makes sense
Yeah.
with what I said earlier.
Shandy Freefoot, a halfling rogue, very skilled with a bow though.
Very skilled with
Very skilled.
Yeah.
So a bow-wielding rogue. And then lastly we have Neris Cathon, who is a human cleric of Kellenvor, who is the Lord of the Dead.
And their big thing is always with the Dead 3. Kellenvor is really not a fan of.
No. So
It's one of those things where like the god of the dead really doesn't like undeath.
What makes sense, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean we're gonna see a little bit of why Kellenvor wouldn't like that with some of the random encounters you could find inside the cities. Now I'll make this quick, and I'll divide it by
the district.
by the district. So in the upper city, if you're running a random encounter as you wander through the streets, you could run into either imps disguised as ravens, suits of armor that have escaped the High Hall of Wonder. You can also run into abductor, murder, and revenge squads of devotees of the Dead 3. Now, these are specifically detailed on page 28 of Descent into Avernus, but the groups are all comprised of followers of all 3 gods at a time, and they wander the streets seeking to abduct unwitting citizens, murder those waving their wealth around adventurers, or avenge those who speak ill against the Dead 3 with overwhelming power and numbers. Okay? These things play into it. Now, in the inner city, you could find more of these Dead 3 squads, or a gang of half-ogres that are just wandering the streets.
Because
And
why
like,
not?
these are your wandering hooligans that are just wandering around drunk looking for a fight.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like part of their night out.
Yeah,
The
pretty
fight
much.
is all
It's
part of it.
not a good night until you've come home with a black eye.
Yeah. Now, you could also run into some operatives from the guild, or a fistful of brawlers around the corner from some surly and underpaid members of the Fist. They're all pretty cool. Now, finally, in the outer city, which is a place I never want to go, one can find a crew of criminals demanding a street tax, or random undead picking corpses on the street clean from their unneeded flesh. I'd like to point out, the Flaming Fist police inside the wall.
Right.
The outer city are outside the wall. There is no guard outside of the walls.
Yeah. Chaos reigns outside.
Chaos reigns. But that's not it. You can find a cockatrice, 6 sturges, a couple of jackal wares, or mimics disguised as refuse on the side of the road. I quit. I'm out.
This is like...
You missed my favorite one, though, Dan.
What's your favorite one?
My favorite one is the flying double-bladed axe terrorizing passersby.
Yeah, okay, so
Which is actually
just real quick.
Which is Dan's favorite creature, actually.
There is a tavern that has an enchanted double-bladed axe as part of its whole thing. Except the double-bladed axe is a enchanted sturge to look like a double-bladed axe
Right.
that is just flying through the city doing sturge shit, but it looks like a double-bladed
And
axe.
we all know, it's well documented that Dan loves sturges.
Oh yeah, they're the greatest.
This is that Final Fantasy type random encounter when it makes
Yeah.
no sense why these things are
Absolutely.
walking around the like you'll have the encounter, kill the weird monster that it doesn't make sense why it's in the street, and then there'll just be like a little boy NPC that's like, oh, I saw him, he went that way. Like it's like, why are you here?
At this point, we're going to wrap things up. I want to ask you guys, what is an inspiration for one combat encounter within the realms of Baldur's Gate? Let's roll. I got a 3.
I got 2.
I'm
You
leading
went
with a
first.
7.
Yeah. So one combat encounter.
All right. I am picturing a gang of just street urchins
Okay.
that have basically been paid.
I want you to realize, I'm going to stop you.
Yes.
This is a combat encounter, and you were talking about a horde of
Sorry,
children.
did we say
So this is a combat encounter, and you want to throw a horde of children.
apologies.
I'm stopping you. Terry,
I heard
what is
encounter.
your-
I did not hear
like it.
combat
This is
because I
coming
want
back-
it to be a social encounter.
This is coming
My
back to the
apologies.
Oliver Twist thing.
Yeah, that's what I was picturing.
So what
yeah.
I'm thinking is Brad, who's still dealing with a toddler who doesn't sleep very well, wants to kick a bunch of kids around.
Not quite. No, I wouldn't say it out loud.
Like when they're like
That's the inside head.
like an 8 or 9-year-old where they're not cute anymore, they're supposed to know better and they're just being a dick.
You're not supposed to kill them. You're just supposed
That's
to.
right. You're not supposed to kill.
You're just doing non-lethal damage, right? You're just bludgeoning them to
I
unconsciousness.
genuinely thought you just said general encounter. I didn't catch combat
General encounter. All right, so Terry, what do you got for a combat encounter, Brad?
My bad.
In the city.
You have a perfect situation with Baldur's Gate here where you can have 3-level combat, which you can do well because you have sewers. So you have sewers, street, and rooftops.
Oh,
which
yeah.
can all be played, and you can easily move between them because there's entrances into the sewers everywhere wherever you put them. And and each level is so different with what's on it. Right, and how you move around it, and how you can kind of move between one and the other. But it's easy enough to manage for you as the DM because it's just 3 different maps that would just be 3 different levels. And essentially, you can just play Super Mario Combat here, but move between the levels. And I think
like
it would
it.
be
That'd be
fantastic.
very cool.
Well, what I would love to see is not just that, but you're dealing with the fog as well.
Yeah.
You can have so much like weird illusion-based combat here, right? Especially if you are near one of the halls of wonder and some of these mechanical things get out and just cause random magical effects that are actually mechanical out there, right? So like there's so many things you could do and mess with people with fog. I mean, imagine what the streets will look like after a gust of wind hits the street.
Absolutely.
And now you could see the street for a minute, right? I mean, there's so many cool things you could do with that. How about...
Can I redeem myself for 1 second?
Sure.
What I really want for a combat encounter is a Rakshasa chasing you through the streets of Baldur's Gate.
Yeah. No, what? Or a werewolf, just some sort of lycanthrope flavored.
I
thing.
specifically want a Rakshasa. Yeah.
Yeah, from the Kalimshite.
Yes.
From the Kalimshite like district, Little
Yeah,
Kalimshan.
absolutely.
Like, yeah, I'm with you on that one. What do you got for an exploration encounter?
Exploration encounter. I mean, a city of this size has so many options, but I'm going back to the sewers.
Yep, cool.
I mean, everything that's hidden in a city is going to be in the sewers. Secret passageways, entry into houses and buildings that you shouldn't have access into. I mean, no one ever wants to go into them, and it's the perfect spot to hide whatever you need to hide.
Yeah, I'd say the waterways of the city like this. So the cities are very different from the waterways.
Yeah.
You can see things that you don't realize that you would be able to see when you see things from a different angle. Like even into buildings, you know, like just going back to London, for example, Parliament sits right on the river, and you can like essentially see into it, you know, and I think it'll provide a different viewpoint and just an interesting way to do things.
My exploration encounter is actually going to involve Ramazith's tower, which is that wizard's tower. Any kind of crazy shit could happen within a wizard's tower, but it's also in the upper district, the upper city, which is close to all of the, again, these mechanical things that are coming out from this. If I'm in Baldur's Gate, I'm going to want this steampunk level of shit involved, right? So one of the really, really fun exploration level encounters I want is a steam train loose inside of this massive tower, right? And you are now traveling the tower on the back of this train going up, and you have to finish the encounter before you hit the top of the train, or this thing's exploding out the top.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Kind of, yeah, right? Cool. What about a social encounter?
Again, rift with them. I mean, you've got an entire upper class bourgeoisie sort of political intrigue, but instead, I think what I'm going to do, this is where I was picturing more of the street urchins, right? Where they've been sent after you, but street urchins can be bought, right?
Or beaten, like you said earlier.
Yeah, I suppose. But I like the thought, right? I mean, Sherlock Holmes did such a great job with this, right? Where they're the silent ears of the entire city.
Yeah.
These are
Oliver Twist.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you can get a band of them, pay them what they need, give them meals, a roof over their heads, and basically have almost run your own, or like an orphanage, basically, of these urchin children that go out and do your bidding. I think that
I love it.
That's going to buy your way past so many tricky things that you as a party would not be able to gain access to.
Cool. Terry, social encounter.
Social encounter, yeah. So I don't like saying this phrase, but when I was in Afghanistan, which is occasionally comes up, there was a part of the training to go there is to look out for something called absence of the normal, presence of the abnormal. And what that basically means is when you are local to an area, the local populace will understand if something is happening before you will. So, for example, the reason why this was important is if we turned a corner and it was 2:00 on a Tuesday afternoon and the marketplace was empty, we'd be like, we're not going down there because they know what's going on, even if we don't. That would be presence of the abnormal. Absence of the normal. Presence of the abnormal would be like if you were walking through the desert and there was a Coca-Cola can on the side, you'd be like, do not kick that can of Coca-Cola, it will explode. That type of thing. But you can do that in this type of environment. Because the locals, even though they may not know the in-depth behind the scenes of what's going on, they will know if a particular well-known person is in the marketplace or something before you've seen them, and they will move away from a certain area, or they'll start to act differently if something's happening, or they'll know if something is not supposed to be there before you will. And you can lean into these things as kind of like clues as to what's going on, and it'll give it a little bit more life to what's happening. Is to use the local people as a reflection of actually what's happening in an area.
Yeah, that's really cool. For me, you mentioned the whiskey lady and her her parties. The French Revolution level of like the upper class is partying and dancing and having masquerades and like eating their cake, and the lower classes are just fuming mad about it, right? Going through and experiencing the level of aggressive ignorance that the upper class have towards the plight of the lower classes is definitely something that this is perfectly tailored for. So the Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake quote of just let them eat cake then. If they don't have enough money to buy bread,
let them eat cake instead.
Let them eat cake instead, right? Well, no, and we're butchering that fucking quote.
Absolutely, 100%.
But what is it? It is oh fuck!
Because she was not as vicious as she.
No, she was not. No, like she was seen as really, really ignorant to that. But like that level of arrogance, almost, and like unknowing arrogance, right, is definitely something I want to explore as a D&D player and as a DM. right? And see my players try to interact with somebody who just authentically thinks that they just got to pull up their bootstraps. That's all they got to do.
Yeah.
Right? How about this? How about Brad, give me a interesting plot hook or one shot or campaign. Just one. What do you got?
So a big rule in Baldur's Gate is you never go out after dark.
Yeah.
So I am going to have the party specifically going out after dark to hunt the hunter.
Okay.
So I'm picturing, we talked earlier about Jack the Ripper. I'm picturing there is a Jack the Ripper running amok.
Serial killer. Yeah.
Specifically in the outer city, part of the city, right? Where there's no protection. The Flaming Fist doesn't even dare go there and only operates at night. And
One of the random encounters you could hit in the outer city is straight up a serial killer,
yeah.
right? Who uses the assassin stat block, which is it's just beautiful. It's just perfect.
It is. But yeah, I'm picturing that's what I want. It is more of a one shot or even like a small campaign arc. But realistically, I mean, you could then turn that person that they're hunting into more of a Moriarty, and now you've got your campaign arc.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Yeah, you got
This
it.
is the Moriarty to your... So they're hunting the guy they're hunting the hunter, at which point they get caught in a trap. The hunter escapes, and boom, now you've got a nemesis for your whole campaign.
Right. Leaning into the classes again, I think you can lean into social change. So where the class divide really started to blur was after World War One. If anybody knows, where everybody, doesn't matter where you came from, everybody was sharing trenches. You might not be the same rank or whatever, but you're all going over the top at the same time. Coming back from 4 years of that, all of a sudden you didn't want to polish your shoes and call this person sir or my lord anymore and go back to business in that sense. So the class divide started to blur a little bit. And I think this would be a great campaign setting for where you can start to see that. And it typically happens with the younger generations. An example I can think of is there was a documentary years ago where Prince William was with his friends. I think he was in Africa or something like that, destined to be king whether he likes it or not. And they were all talking about their big plans for life. And he said, you're all talking about your grand plans for life, and one day I'm going to be king, and right now I'm not interested in that. And that is a sign of me of where he was. He was looking for change, even though you think that he shouldn't be that person at that time. And I would like to see that, how some big social change, maybe after a significant event. You guys talked about how there's a tension of war with the other area, and how that might start to affect things within the city, because there will be resistance from the older generation, and there will be there will be a movement of change with the younger people. And I think you can put that in the activities in the city, whether it goes for like extremism or like some sort of terrorist act, or whether it's just sort of rebellion of some kind. But it'll make an interesting plot hook and campaign arc, because it won't necessarily be totally clear what's happening or where the threat is coming from.
Yeah, for me, it is a full campaign arc, and this is probably because I've been watching far too much of The Wire recently. But your party is a group of the Flaming Fist who is actually, they are part of the good groups of the Flaming Fist, and they're trying to shut down a massive influx of drugs that have hit the city. And are starting to kill people with weird consequences, right? Like they die, and then within an hour they're back up as the undead, right? Yeah. Or there's an undead creature. I'm not sure it's in 5th. It probably is. It's called a heck of a.
Yeah, it's a heck of a creature.
Before, yeah.
No, it's a heck of a problem. And what it is it's an undead creature that inhabits a dead creature, basically. It is a worm-like creature that controls a dead corpse.
Right.
Okay, having that thing in like a larval stage as a drug that makes everybody it lets you see through the fog, right? Ooh, make it super on point, right? And then you have a bunch of noblemen taking it, being able to see through the fog, and now they get to live the life of the lower folk and skulk around in the shadows for once, right? And it's this whole thing, and your party is the ones who are trying to shut down that drug ring.
I love that. That's brilliant. Very cool. Undead thing you mentioned there, because that can be symbolic of addiction, right? Like the Walking Dead type thing. When you get so lost in that abyss, it's hard to come out, and it feels like they're on a different plane of existence when it gets to that point.
Exactly. And it brings into the fact that
the Dead 3 is part of the undead, right?
Is part of the undead, as well as the fact that Baldur's Gate is a trade hub.
Absolutely is.
Right? So if any of your campaign ideas don't involve, at least at any point in the campaign, the fact that you are dealing with one of the biggest trade hubs on the Sword Coast, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's rich. Use it.
Absolutely.
Okay? Guys, real quick, Brad, does this interest you as a city?
It very much does, but I'll be honest, as a player, I find it overwhelming as a DM.
Yeah, okay.
That's
fair.
It really,
That's fair.
like you mentioned, You'd be doing yourself a disservice to not look at the trade hub. You'd be doing yourself a disservice to not look at the class war. There are so many balls to keep in the air. Balls to keep in the air.
Yeah, ball spawns.
Yeah, with this campaign setting that it intimidates me as a DM. I think it's really interesting. There's so much to work off of, but I can't imagine myself running a campaign in here.
Okay, cool. Terry?
Yeah, as a player, 100%, I'd want to dive right into it. I am interested as a DM, but I have the same fears as Brad. I think what I would do to manage that is I would restrict it to a certain area, not like video game style where you can't go past the invisible wall, but make it so that the majority of what is going on, it would be in a particular area before you move on, which I think would be typical of a bigger city like this anyway. You know, even us in the Vancouver area are typically in our area of the city. We have no reason to suddenly go to West Van for 2 hours and then come back. And so that means it'll be quite manageable if most of the people you're meeting and things you're interacting with are in a particular place.
Yeah. I'm honestly, I've shat on this book for its lackadaisical approach to Baldur's Gate because you're not in it for long.
No.
But they've given you such a wealth of information to be able to run a full campaign out of Baldur's Gate that really you don't have to leave.
And I never realized that looking at, because I've glanced at this book and I've been like, I don't care about the, like, going to the hells and all, like, that doesn't interest me. And doing the prep for this episode and specifically going into how much content it has specifically for Baldur's Gate.
Well, this is
really
a 250-page book, and of that 250 pages, I'm talking specifically of Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus.
Yes.
Of that 250-odd pages, a good 50 pages of it is just about Baldur's Gate.
Absolutely. They've really done a deep dive.
Which is weird, considering, based off the story, you leave.
You start there,
right away.
and then you're gone. You get your plot hook from there, and then that's the last you see.
Yeah, so I love Baldur's Gate. I really want to use it as even as a point of inspiration for my homebrew campaigns, right?
Absolutely.
Any sort of major oceanside metropolis done, right?
It really gives you a good starting point.
So that'll be it for this discussion on Baldur's Gate, but there are a lot of other pieces of lore in Dungeons and Dragons. So subscribe or follow and check back regularly to see what inspirations and insights we'll have for you in the future. Next week, we'll be taking a good long look at one of the most customizable playable races in 5th edition, the Genasi.
If you'd like to support us, we have a donate button on our website, www.itsamimic.com, as well as a store for some awesome merch. We also rely on word of mouth to get news of the podcast out there to the community, so please pass the word to everyone you know that we're available on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, as well as most podcast apps. Thanks again for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get.
This has been an It's a Mimic production. Inquiries, requests, and questions for our mailbags can be sent to info@itsamimic.com.
So all this talk going through Baldur's Gate had me thinking about run race I'd like to see more of, and that's the GIF.
Yeah.
The giant hippo, like, they just seem to fit in this setting pretty well, and I would love to see them also as a player race.
Yep.
Are there any races that you think that maybe we're missing from Baldur's Gate that you'd like to see, maybe from other content? And any that you'd particularly like to play as a player race?
Okay, so for those who maybe zoned out in the lore dump, Baldur's Gate is basically Victorian London. It is under a dense thing of fog almost all the time just because of its position in the lowlands.
Yeah.
And it has a bunch of technical marvels to it.
Yes.
Due to the worship of the god Gond. So let's grab the dice and see. Terry?
I'm ready.
I got a 1.
14.
I got a 16. The GIF are good. I like the idea that the GIF are here, but I would also like to see more of rock gnome presence in it, like just more of a general gnome.
Of course, it's a gnome.
But it's a lot of the stuff is like human made stuff or dwarven make, right? The humans and dwarves are the primary races.
So you're leaning into the tinkering of Victorian steampunk.
Right?
Okay, I'll let it slide.
Terry, what do you got?
I've never played this game. I don't know what's involved with it. So, elves?
Well, I mean, this is if you wanted to play a Victorian espionage, lots of like mid-street level murder, steampunky feel game, what kind of race would you want to play?
Half-elf.
You want to play a half-elf? Why?
Yeah. For the same reason I played a half-elf in the game, because they're never fully accepted by either side.
Okay.
So naturally they make people that would fit into being in the shadows would maybe resent one half of the lineage or not, and so they never truly feel accepted. That's how I played my half-elf, and I feel like that makes for a good criminal outsider.
I think it would definitely fit within the setting, especially like Denizens and Avernus sort of setting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The other one I would like to add, Modrons. Like playable Modrons.
Playable Modrons.
Within this sort of setting. I think that'd be a really cool kind of character to... In
Yeah.
the same way that you were talking about, like, gnome
Or just
tinkerers.
Warforged.
Warforged
Like, why
as
are
well.
Warforged
Like, bring them in...
here?
Well,
Yeah.
Ebron,
Other than
right?
it's Faerun.
Yeah, this is Faerun. There are no Warforged, but
Yeah.
they would be a natural fit in this setting.
Cool.
Cool.
Thanks for listening. Bye.